every single year. We will make another apology for this later on, but I want to just acknowledge that due to the, and I'm going to blame the crisis with the electricity. Our office was without electricity on Monday, which meant our program didn't improve, which means that we lost, one of our partners was not recognized in the program, and Chantel will point that out, but understand that we appreciate the generosity of that individual, and thank you so much for your understanding. I want to thank just a few people. Richard Johnson, who's our photographer, who comes and volunteers to do our music interview. One of our board members, Randy Yorston, for playing. Randy's right here. Thank you, Randy. One of the newest ventures that the council has just become engaged in is a partnership with the Helen Hudson Foundation for the Homeless. We are so excited about this. As a result of that, we've been able to hire a new part-time staff person. I want to, where are the Helen Hudson folks? I know we put you all there, they are back there. So Tom Lane and the speakers, the Story Power people, would you stand with Tom and some Story Power people, please stand. So, you're going to be hearing more about these folks in the days ahead, but we're very excited and would love to have one of these folks come and talk to you about what it really means to be homeless. And the staff person we've hired to work with those folks as coordinator is Jennifer Gary. Jennifer, would you stand so you can see her? And, she's under orders to start driving you crazy, telling you that you need to have a speaker come and talk to you about the homeless. So you'll be hearing from her as well. I'm not going to take time to introduce all of our board members, but I would like to invite the board members that are here to please stand and thank them for their incredible faithfulness. Board members, would you please stand? Now, it wouldn't be a gathering of religious folks if there wasn't an opportunity for an offering. So we're not going to take a real offering day, but on your tables are these yellow sheets. This is our 80th anniversary, and we have been together since 1937. And a couple of years ago, we knew this was coming up. I wondered, what do you give somebody for their 80th anniversary? I knew you give silver for 25. You give gold for 50. What do you give for an 80th anniversary? Well, it turns out you give oak. And, you know, I guess most of us haven't experienced an 80th anniversary, but you give oak. And so we decided to look in the scriptures. We found this marvelous passage in the book of Isaiah that talks about oaks of righteousness. That has been our theme this year, and we're offering the opportunity, if you'd like to pledge to give $80 or more to the Council of Churches before the end of the year, you can fill out one of these forms, and there'll be people at the door with baskets, and you can drop that in, and we'll be back to you about that. Also want to just recognize a few folks who are with us. We want to thank Dr. Foster for his invocation as a district superintendent in the United Methodist Church here in New England, and then Bishop Nicholas Knisley from the Providence Rhode Island Diocese for the Episcopal Church. Bishop, would you stand please so you can be acknowledged? We're so happy to have you here. The President of the Board of Rabbis, you will hear from later, but is here with us Rabbi Sarah Mack. Rabbi Mack. The Reverend Tom Wiles, who's the executive of the American Baptist, is going to be here, but he has this cold that's going around and he's down for the count for today. The President and CEO of the Jewish Alliance, Adam Greene, is here. Adam, where are you? One of the things on your chair is from the I am. That's the kind of thing that we hear all of the time. But 8 years ago, we decided that we ought to bring the faith community together to recognize people who are making a significant contribution, not to puff them up or to puff up their pride, but to recognize their work and to remind all of us that there are lots of good things happening all around us. And my hope this morning is, as you leave, you'll leave saying, we know there's some bad stuff happening around us, but in spite of that, there's a lot of really good stuff happening, and happening here in the faith community in Rhode Island. So we're very grateful that you're here, and that's the reason that we do all of this. So I'm going to or start talking about our Heroes of Faith Award. And then later, Chantel will come and we'll present our Partners in Faith Award. The Partners in Faith are nominated by individual congregations or organizations for things that they've done, and all of their work is in your program. The first award we want to make this morning is the Interfaith Award. And this is given to an individual who's worked at improving interfaith relationships and promote interfaith understanding throughout Rhode Island. We are really pleased to acknowledge that there have been a number of people who've received this award. I'd like to read their names, and if I read your name and you're here, would you please stand? Maxine Richmond, Ron and Kathy Makeley, Imam Reed Ansari, Reverend Santiago and Kayla Rodriguez, Marty Cooper, Swami Yoga Manhada, Reverend Mary Margaret Earl, Mufti Ibrahim Al-Huk, and Rabbi Alan Fland. I guess we've got one of those people here. Congratulations, that's Maxine Richmond. Thank you. The person receiving our Interfaith Award this morning is Reverend Wendy Ibrahim. Wendy, would you please step forward? Oh, did I say Reverend? Doctor. Oh, sorry. Well, she is going for you are going for your doctor of ministry, right? So. I conferred ordination on a number of rabbis, so I might as well start some of my Muslim brothers as well. Wendy is the Vice President of the Rhode Island Council for Muslim Advancement. None of us need any reminder this morning of the tension that exists in the United States around various faith traditions, and those people who would like to scapegoat the Muslim tradition and provide a simple answer for very complex problems. One of the things we know is that the Muslim people that we know here in Rhode Island, and the overwhelming majority of Muslim people, are people who are faith-loving people who love God, who love one another, and love us. And we are so grateful to the Muslim community here in Rhode Island and for the way in which so many people have stepped forward to share their understanding of faith and to help people understand what their faith is about and to help people grow in their own understanding of God. Wendy is one of those people, and we are so grateful for the work that she has done long before she became Vice President for the Rhode Island Council for Muslim Advancement, and being available to speak to people and just share her own story about Muslim faith, to add understanding so that we can understand one another and learn to live with one another in peace. And it is my very great privilege, and excuse me, I should have done this first. It is my very great privilege, Wendy, on behalf of the Council of Churches, to present to you this year's Hero of Faith Award for our Interfaith Award. We're so grateful to you and for the work that you're doing. And I should mention that Mayor Larza has provided certificates for all of you, so be sure to pick that up before you leave today, okay? There's your award.
I'm even more humble than I was when Don dragged me to the coffee shop to invite me to get this award. When I hear the people who have come before me and got this award, I am among a group of people that I respect tremendously. I want to take you back 20 years because I think this story really exemplifies my lifelong commitment to doing interfaith work. I was new in Cairo, Egypt. I was teaching at a university there, and one of my American colleagues invited me to come to a Mormon church. And any of you who know me know that I don't pass up any sort of interfaith experience that I can have. And I'm like, sure, I've never been to a Mormon church, I'll go to a Mormon church. So I went with her to a Mormon church, and I felt like I had hit the lottery because when I got there, there was a pool in the front, a kiddie pool that was all blown up and all full of water, and I was like, oh great, it's baptism day. I made it for baptism day. So I waited through the service, waiting for the baptism because I was just excited. And what I didn't expect to happen was when the folks came up to get baptized, they were from Sudan, And so here we had these American, very, very porcelain, fair-skinned people standing next to these very beautiful, dark-skinned Sudanese people in this Mormon church, in Cairo, in Africa, on this planet. And I just felt like all of these amazing experiences are happening all over the world every day. And this snapshot in time, this is my experience. So I watched these people get baptized, full immersion baptism. My excitement was palpable. So the congregants invited me back to come the next week. I did, because I do. And I didn't realize their agenda was a little different then. Needless to say, I did not become Mormon. That didn't happen. But celebrating diversity is not just a tagline for me. This is something that I live in my heart every single day. I live and love human beings. And God tells us in the Quran that He created us in tribes and nations to get to know each other. And that's what I do. And that's what I'm doing. And I'm honored and humbled beyond belief to be up here in front of all of you. And I hope we continue to do great work together. Thank you very much.
George Dickson Kennedy was a philanthropist here in Rhode Island. Some of you know of his family business, Kennedy Manufacturing. And Dick, as most of us knew him and who knew him well, was a person who didn't give with great flair. He did most of his giving behind the scenes, but there's hardly a philanthropic organization in Rhode Island that hasn't enjoyed the largesse of the Kennedy family. But for us, stewardship is a lot more than just giving money. It's about how one lives their life, how one invests their life, how one spends their life in the toil for God. And so we are pleased to honor people who have who have also given money, but who, more importantly, have invested their life in working for God in the world. Former recipients of the Stewardship Award, and I'll ask them to stand if they're here, the Reverend Betsy Garland, Frank Cook, George Dickson Kennedy, Episcopal Charities, George Weevil, and the Reverend Marie Carpenter. And some of those folks here, thank you. The recipient of the Stewardship Award this year is Father Gene McKenna. Father Gene, would you come forward, please? So we could spend all day talking about the accomplishments of Gene McKenna. He has been a faithful priest and a faithful pastor. He worked tirelessly to fight predatory gambling in the state. But more important than that for us, he has been a faithful witness to the Roman Catholic tradition in the ecumenical conversations at the Council of Churches. Gene has been on our Faith and Order Commission and helped in so many other ways when we have needed someone who could come and help broaden our ecumenical table. And we are so grateful for him and for his spirit. I know that there's a whole bunch of Gene McKenna fans out here this morning. And we're so glad that you're all here because we are all part of God's faith community. And Gene has made a faithful representation of that, and the way he has lived his life, and by the number of people who are here this morning to honor him, is a testimony to the reality of how Gene has led his life. Gene, it is my great honor and joy on behalf of the Rhode Island State Council of Churches to award to you this year's George Dickson Kennedy Stewardship Award. Congratulations.
thank you, everyone. I wrote a few notes so that I won't go on forever, and that I will be able to go on. I barely made it up here, so I'll do my best to share a couple of thoughts with you. First of all, I'm totally surprised, blown away. I couldn't believe when I was one of those that said in all honesty to Don Anderson, no, I'm not worthy. There's so many other folks out there that do so much more. And I started to think about it, of course. And in this baseball season, I recall those immortal words of Lou Gehrig when he retired. He said on his retirement day, "Today I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth. As much as I honor Lou Gehrig, he's wrong. I'm the luckiest person as I look around and see so many friends." And I think I just want to say a couple of things. First of all, it took me an awful long while to figure out the Stewardship Award. In the Catholic circles, we have tended to use that word for raising money and that kind of stewardship, all of which has its place. But that was not my favorite thing to do. But then I realized in the wider world and in the Catholic world as we progress, we are looking at stewardship in a far wider way. And you folks are here today to accept and to confirm your role in the world of religion, trying to bring the message of God by whatever names we use to speak to God, to bring that message to one another. And I decided that that's how I'm going to identify and give a definition to stewardship. And I want to say two things, inviting you all to accept your role in your various congregations and in society. All of us are stewards of this creation, this world, this community of nations. And the second point I want to make, and I'll expand a little bit, but the second point is to the leaders of faith, that you do all you can to elicit a support and responsible membership from your community, your co-workers. You know how that old ad goes, not terribly old, but if I have a happy staff, I have a happy life. And that's been my privilege to have people that I can work with and create community with. And then I started to think more deeply, well, what does this mean? Why did they choose me? And I said, well, it's not as important why they chose me and what definition they use. I said, it's really more important that I decide about myself, how I look at my own life and see what I would consider to be those moments of grace. And strangely enough, I thought of a book that I translated when I was a student, and I dug it out of my closet this morning, The Apostolic Community. And that moved me deeply, just at the beginning, before the Second Vatican Council, that we are a community, and that we must work at every day, where we all have different roles, but we're all members of that community. It was a pleasure. The book was by Monsignor Serfo, who was a very famous expert, we call him Providence, at the Second Vatican Council. And it was such a pleasure in my life and such a moving time to meet with him and to get his permission to translate the book. He eventually approved it. However, I couldn't get the publisher to approve it. Ordination came, and I was far more taken up with ordination and ministry than having a book translated. But it always got translated, I think. I tried in my own life to form community with people, to see others as equal to us. We all have different roles, and Paul tells us so clearly, but we're called to serve together to create that community. And I see one of my co-translators, Justice William Robinson, who helped me with the book. He's a lover of English, a lover of theology, a lover of scripture, a lover of the law, of humankind, and all those good things. And he was such an inspiration in kind of proofreading the book with me and helping me. So anyway, that's really what I wanted to say. I thank you for this opportunity to be present to you. And for me, what it has done for me, I was reading a book at the same time, a book entitled Transatlantic by Colin McCann. And one of the chapters in the book is The Garden of Remembrance. And you people have forced me to look more closely at my garden of remembrance and to recall all those beautiful moments, beautiful people. I could pick out every one of you. One person here I've seen once for about 10 minutes in 34 years. Another fellow was supposed to come. I don't know if he's here. From Norwell, Massachusetts, Steve O'Connor. I don't know if he made it. Is that Steve? Yes, Steve. I've seen him once in 34 years for a very brief time, and when I got the message that he was coming, I was so pleased. He's my tax preparer. And when I was stationed in Belgium, I had to file taxes with the Belgian government income taxes and with the American government. I had enough trouble paying the taxes, never mind filing, but he's helped me out all these years, and I totally appreciate it. And there's so many other surprises like that. Father Bob Beloin, chaplain of Yale Catholic Community at Yale University, who has been a good friend and colleague, and I've worked with him way back in Belgium. And all those moments, I could go around the whole room. That's my sister, everybody knows she's my co-worker. You all know her. And what you don't know is that we've been working together since she was about 10 years old, maybe 9. We had a paper route together.
I think it was 8.
8 years old. And she's always right, 8 years old. And, you know, and we've had no extraordinary privilege, which doesn't happen to everybody. We've worked together in ministry in a variety of places, which most of it was by accident, or I think by God's grace. Anyway, thank you all. I could go around the whole room. I wish I had time, but they get the hook out. Although I got to tell you one thing, I preached in a Protestant church one time, Presbyterian church, with an exchange of pulpits. And afterwards, we were going down the stairs of the church, down to the basement to have coffee. And one person said to me, "Well, Father, that was very nice. It was awfully short." I'm making up for it. God bless you.
I apologize for my oversight. I realized when I was standing here looking down that Father John Kylie, who is the ecumenical representative for the diocese, is here. Father John Kylie, thank you for coming. All the way from Woonsocket. I mean, that's, in Rhode Island, that's a big deal, right? The Bolles Life Achievement Award is given to individuals who throughout their lives have continually and consistently served the community from a perspective of hope and faith. Some of our former recipients, and again, if you're here, please stand. Reverend Josh McClure, Henry Shelton, Bishop C. Dale White, Sister Annye Keefe, Reverend Lionel Blaine, Reverend Sammy Vaughn, Sister Mary Riley, Reverend James Miller, Reverend Ibrahim W. Bolles, Dr. Marion Stiles McClintock, Sister Mary Mott, Rabbi James Rosenberg, Rabbi Leshiel Gutterman, and Peggy Ann Vittori. I think some of those folks are here. Thank you. This year's recipient is Sister Ann Pitts. Sister Pitts, would you come join me, please? Now, as usual, Sister Pitts looks fantastic this morning. I want you to know I have never seen this woman not look fantastic. And she's probably going to scold me before the morning's over, because she spends more time scolding me than anything else. But when we thought about this Life Achievement Award, this really is about how you invest your life and share your life with others. Some of us have been given a special gift. Sister Pitts' gift is the gift of music and the gift of singing. When she sings, I not only hear her life, but I hear the African American experience in America. She is an incredible and extraordinary woman. And those of you who had the privilege of being with us for our 80th anniversary had the privilege of hearing Sister Pitts. And you know what I'm talking about. And I want you to know, Sister Pitts, that this is an honor more for us than it is for you. For us to say thank you and to acknowledge the fact that God has given you a special gift and that you have taken that gift and used it in such extraordinary ways to touch the lives of so many people. And so it is my great honor and joy on behalf of the Rhode Island State Council of Churches to award to you this year's the Abraham Bolles Life Achievement Award to you, Sister Annye. Congratulations.
Good morning. Good morning. Given unto God, Dr. Anderson, President Washington, the Rhode Island State Council of Churches, office members, the selection committee, all clergy, visitors, friends, and my family. I am super grateful and very humbled to be chosen to receive this award today. Reverend Herbert, he passed in 1988. At the age of 88. And he was married to Elizabeth Bambi for 57 years. They had 4 children, 9 grandchildren. And out of that 4 children, one of the children had a name named Annye, and she's the minister in Orange, New Jersey. And Dr. Bolles also, he served at churches in Rhode Island and Indianapolis. He was a long-time Navy career man, and he enjoyed traveling back and forth to Africa. And in 1962, he returned to active duty as a chaplain for the destroyer squadron, DESDIV. And for that, he received the bronze medal from the United States Navy. And he was a graduate of the regular theological seminary. And he loved to play jokes on people. But most importantly, he enjoyed traveling back and forth to Africa. And in my closing, I would like for you to give you the title of a few songs that are dear to my heart and in my soul, and that I try to maintain in my daily life. Jesus, I'm available to you. Lead me, Jesus, lead me, while I'm on this Christian journey. If I can help somebody, I'll go if I have to go by myself. I'm going to run on to see what's the end is going to be. May the work I've done speak for me. He keeps on blessing me. But finally, I never would have made it without God and you. I graciously thank all of you. God's blessings.
Several years ago, we realized that the heart of much activity happens in the congregations of our various faith traditions, and so began to award a congregational award each year. The recipients of that, I don't know if we have anyone here this year from the two recipients that received this, Harvard Church on Block Island and Calvary Worship Center in Woonsocket are our former awardees. This year's awardee is the First Unitarian Church of Providence, and I think Kathy and Jay are going to come up and receive that award. As we've already noted, we live in challenging days. Challenging days call for faithful responses on the part of members of the faith community. One of the historic ways in which the faith community has spoken out and acted is by providing sanctuary. And last year, when we started talking about helping congregations and helping to coordinate congregations who wanted to be sanctuary congregations, one of the first congregation to contact us was the First Unitarian Church of Providence. It is not an easy thing to become a sanctuary congregation. It's easy to raise your hand, but to follow through and do all the things that are necessary is incredibly challenging. And they have done that. In fact, one of the things they've done is met with people in Providence to work with that. And I know, is Commissioner Perry still here? Commissioner Perry was here. Public Safety Commissioner from Providence was here. These folks have worked with the City of Providence. They've worked with other folks to prepare themselves. So should it become necessary, and we hope it will never be necessary, but given the world we live in, it's entirely possible that it will be necessary to provide sanctuary. Like I said, the reason we wanted to recognize these folks this morning was not only because they were the first ones to come to us and share their interest in doing this, but the way in which they've done it has been responsible and thorough and doing it the right way. And should the time come that they have to take someone to sanctuary, we will come to a number of you and say, can you help? Because it's more than any one congregation is able to do. But today, we are honored to give this award to the First Congregational, the First Unitarian Church of Providence. And so it is my great joy and honor to present to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Providence the Congregational Award for this year. Thank you so much.
Hello, thank you for everyone for being here and for bestowing this honor upon us. It's not something that we expected. It's not why we are doing this work. We just felt at the time that it was really important for our congregation to stand up for those who don't have proper representation due to kind of technical difficulties. And we wanted to make sure that we came together as a group to be a voice for them. So we're currently, we have reached out to other congregations and other community groups to help us with this project. If there are other people who are interested, we're always looking for more partners in this. But we're currently ourselves organizing to become a sanctuary congregation, which means setting up a space for someone to live in. And once we have that all done, we will expect that someone will probably be coming to us looking for help. We realize that there are so many more people that we won't be able to help, but in helping this one person give voice to the problems and the difficulties that many people are facing right now, we hope to ease some of the hardship in Rhode Island and in the world and take the steps towards making things better for people in our country and in the world. So thank you so much, and I'd like to also introduce our new minister, Reverend Liz Lerner-McClay, who is new to our congregation, and our Prudential Committee President, Jay Lawson. We work as a congregation together with many people. We don't have a minister who has the authority to tell us what to do. We work by vote from the congregation, so it's a little bit different from a lot of other spiritual arrangements. So it's a group effort. It really is our congregation working together to make this happen. And we really appreciate the support that the Rhode Island State Council of Churches has given us. And we hope to move forward in peace, with love, and standing on the side of love.
Several years ago, as we look to the future of faith in our state, was to initiate a Future of Faith Award. And this award is given to an individual organization that has demonstrated hope for the future of the faith community. Previous recipients have been the Interfaith Exchange at Brown University and Reverend Grissom. This year's awardee is Rabbi Barry Dolinger. Rabbi Dolinger, would you come forward, please? So, you know it's an important award when your mom and dad travel all the way from New York. Mrs. Dolinger, would you stand? I want to recognize you. I know you've probably been told this before, but you've done good. Some of us who are getting a little long in the tooth and know that our ability to provide leadership and be engaged in the faith community, the days are numbered. And you start to look around and you say, who will pick up the mantle? Who will stand for justice? Who has the passion? Who has the courage to say, my faith has taught me this, and no matter what the culture may say, I will stand and stand for truth and for justice. Rabbi Dolinger has done that in amazing ways and at a real cost. It's wonderful to stand up here and receive an award, but sometimes the price one has to pay to stand up for the truth is neither helpful and it can sometimes even be ugly. But Rabbi Dolinger knows what it means to stand for his convictions and to be a person of passion, and he has passion. I love to sit down and just talk with him. In fact, I need to tell you, he even got me to a vegetarian restaurant, which I have been back to a number of times, by the way. But to sit down at lunch with him and talk about the scriptures and talk about faith, and to see the passion that is in his heart for what God is calling people to do is inspiring. And to see the courage that he has exhibited is also inspiring. And when I think about the fact that when some of us are going to be long gone, people like Rabbi Dolinger will still be here, I am filled with hope and with confidence. And so, Rabbi, it is my great honor and joy to award to you this year's Heroes of Faith, Future of Faith Award, Rabbi Barrington.
Incredibly humbled. I'd like to thank everyone who came, my parents. My father's also my tax preparer.
Don't defeat.
My in-laws, members of the congregation and the community, and really everyone who's here. When I think about the future of faith, I think about two figures, about Abraham and Moses, figures that many of us share in common. We just read in the Torah reading and the reading from the Bible this week in our synagogue about how God told Abraham that he had to leave. He had to go on a journey. He says, leave your birthplace, etc., to a land that I will show you. As I mentioned this past week, doesn't say where. We know where he's going. He has no idea where he's going. It's not about the destination. Often we focus on destination goals. Where is this leading? Where we plan. We forecast, we meet, we discuss. But it's less about where we wind up and how we get there. The important point was that he walked each step with God. Think about Moses. In the rabbinic tradition, he follows one lost sheep up a mountain. And in following just this one solitary lost sheep for a while, he encounters the burning bush. What does he say when he gets there? I will turn aside and look at this wondrous thing. There are a couple of elements there. A little rabbinic. Well, it's lost in the grammar. I will turn aside. Faith requires volition and turning. Requires acts of will, conscious, practiced. Moses was practiced at doing this, at looking at things differently. He was comfortable. He had escaped the difficult conditions of his life, but he couldn't not look. I have to turn, I have to look. And to be aware, when we decide to turn, to be aware of what it is we see. With compassion, that's the point there. He looks with compassion at the lost sheep and he chases it. So he looks at compassion with the Israelites and sees their suffering. This great vision that he sees, a bush that is burned but is not consumed. We all burn with yearning, with needs for meaning, safety, protection, dignity. And it threatens to consume us. But what Moses understood when looking with compassion is that these things don't consume. They don't have to be our end. That we can change the inevitable. That what seems like a structure of power, which fights against this compassionate looking. Pharaoh didn't know that God. That's what it says. I don't know your God. This God of compassion who cares about slaves. I'm the God. Power. Pyramids. Moses says, I don't care. We're leaving. And we're going to worship. And it's tied into the future. Right? Moses says, we're going with everyone. With the kids, the women, the goats. I'm not comparing. No comparisons of categories. We're taking everything and we're leaving. And Pharaoh says, after negotiation, fine, you can go. Just the men, just these things. Moses says something profound. We won't know. We won't know how to worship God until we get there. We need everything because we don't know. And so, I guess I just want to say that we don't know what the future will bring. We don't know the destination. We don't know where we will go. And we have to be open to that possibility. That faith, it for sure will. It's a guarantee, a promise, a certainty. Faith will look very different tomorrow and the next day, and for sure in 20 years and 30 years. But what we do know is that it's not about the destination, it's about how we go there. It's about going with compassion, about turning aside and cultivating and reminding ourselves and checking ourselves to keep looking anew with fresh eyes, with compassion for those who have needs. And to stand up to the many structures of power and people of power and institutions of power that don't know that God. With kindness. To free with kindness, to kill with kindness, and to bring everyone and everything with us. Reverend Foster mentioned the tradition that 2 or 3, the divine presence rests. We have that tradition too. Even 2 or 3, it says in our rabbinic teaching. 2 or 3 people share words of teaching at a meal. The divine presence is there, says the Mishnah, the rabbinic oral law. And I know that it's really, you're the heroes. When I look out, everyone's the hero here. This is a room of heroes, people that dedicate their lives to turning aside, to looking, to acting, to not turn. It's very easy to be comfortable with Jethro and his daughters and all that. But this is a room of people who purposely leave comfort every day to live with faith. The divine presence is here in the work that everyone does. It's magnified, it's amplified. It's really just so humbling and an honor to be with you. Thank you so much.
preach that in any Baptist pulpit in Rhode Island. It'll work. As some of our friends say, it'll preach. That'll preach. Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi. Well, this morning, as we've already pointed out several times, we do live in a troubled and a difficult world. One of the sad things that we have rediscovered is that the issue of racism is alive and well in the United States of America. Some of us may have convinced ourselves that we dealt with that issue, but the reality is we have a lot more to go. And that has become one of the major themes for the work of the Council in the last year and a half. And one of the partners that we have found to work with us in this is the Center for Reconciliation. And so before I bring Elon up, let me just explain the award. This is named after Sister Annye, who many of you know, for the Community and Faith Service Award. And this award has been given to the following people, and if you're here, please feel free to stand. Elizabeth Burke-Bryant, John Barry, Susan Adler, Linda Katz, Kathleen McKinnon, Kathleen Taylor, Lieutenant Governor Elizabeth Roberts, Dr. Timothy Flanagan, and Michael Livora. And this year's award goes to the Center for Reconciliation, and I'm going to ask Iman, I think you're coming up to receive the award. Guiding principles at the Council of Churches is to never do things alone if there is a partner out there or partners out there to do it with. It just makes a whole lot of sense, and we think it honors God in taking that approach. And when we began really looking at seriously and trying to speak in a meaningful way, in an in-depth way, at the issue of racism, we began to look for partners, and the Center for Reconciliation was right there. We've worked with the Episcopal Diocese since our very beginning, and so appreciate the work of the diocese, but this special work of the Center for Reconciliation has become so important. And Del Glover, who is here, and Elon have worked with our committee that I'll talk about in a few moments about merciful conversations on race, have worked with us and made a significant contribution in helping us shape our program. And we see the work that the center does and our work is complementary and supplementary to each other and working together. And we are so grateful for partners like this to come together and to work on serious issues like the issue of racism in our country. And so, Iman, it is with great joy and my honor on behalf of the Rhode Island State Council of Churches to award to the Center for Reconciliation the Sister Annye Keefe Community and Faith Service Award for this year.
So I really appreciated the Rabbi's talk, primarily because the work of reconciliation, the work of especially racial reconciliation, is often feels like following a lost sheep up a mountain. Mm-hmm. You're stumbling, you're falling, you're not sure, am I going in the right place? When you get there, maybe you're a little bit terrified and yet filled with hope all at the same time. On behalf of the Center for Reconciliation, I would like to thank the Rhode Island State Council of Churches for the Sister Annye Keefe Award. And more personally, thank you for introducing me to the story of Sister Annye. I moved to Rhode Island a few years ago, just before she passed away, but sadly never had the chance to meet this fierce social justice advocate. She worked tirelessly toward the creation of a beloved community right here in Rhode Island, and the more I learned about her, the more special this award became. The initiative that became the Center for Reconciliation was sparked several years ago when the Episcopal Diocese of Rhode Island was wrestling with two major challenges. First, what to do with the vacant 19th century cathedral, and second, how to reconcile the church's historical connections to slavery and its legacy. The National Church had apologized for its role in the propagation of the slave trade and its historical silence about racial oppression. And this was an important first step, but what next? With the Center for Reconciliation, the Episcopal Diocese has begun to tackle its own role in the history of violence, oppression, and exclusion, but also in understanding the work of the enslaved congregants to reassert their own humanity, of abolitionists of all races working together toward emancipation, of worship services that welcome the faithful equally, regardless of their racial identity, and the welcoming of everyone, no exceptions, into the tough and necessary work of racial reconciliation. The Center for Reconciliation hosts lectures, plays, exhibitions, film screenings, walking tours, and a variety of public programs that educate, inspire, and spark critical dialogues around the challenge of race. The Center's programs teach the public about our churches, our states, and our nation's history of slavery while recognizing that it is necessary in order to understand the racial challenges that we face today. And we have a lot of people who come to us, actually not that many people anymore, thankfully, but we have had people come to us and say, but race is such a divisive and uncomfortable topic. Do we really have to talk about this? And do we really have to talk about this now? I don't know, what do you all say?
Yes.
With political leaders and community members still confused over the primary impetus for the Civil War, white supremacists and neo-Nazis marching openly in the streets, school segregation at its highest level since Brown versus Board of Education, protests on college campus and appeals for ethnic studies in our high schools, Black Lives Matter demanding an end to the killing of unarmed Black and brown men, women, and children, and the continual use of blackface and Indian costumes on Halloween. Is this work important? Yes. And when is the right time to get involved? Now. The Center for Reconciliation and our wonderful partners are all here to give you the knowledge, the vocabulary, and the skills to help you find your place in the work of racial reconciliation. Sister Keefe once said that the gospel means more than the reading of gospel stories. It means action. When she joined the Ancestors, she left a legacy of organizations and programs that continue to put the gospel teachings into action, and we are so proud to be working alongside those organizations. And while we cannot hope to fill her shoes, it is a great honor to be working in her footsteps. Thank you, and we hope to see you all at the Cathedral of St. John in the new year.
The Faith Award is the Faith Leader of the Year Award. Previous recipients of this award are the Reverend Israel Mercedes, the Right Reverend Geraldine Wolfe, Reverend Paul Baylock, Rabbi Amy Levin, the Reverend Dr. Jeffrey Williams, Reverend Matthew Kai, Pastor Naomi Smith, and Dr. Lusan Mirza. This year's award is being given to Rabbi, now I've done Reverend Linda Watkins. Linda Watkins, come forward. Many of you have known Linda in her work at Amos House, as well as her work as the pastor of the First Baptist Church of Pawtucket. Linda is one of our board members. And one of the ways the council works, and I think when we work most effectively, is one of our board members steps forward and says, I think we need to work on this. And I'm willing to help do it. We have a number of, it's easy to say, I think we ought to work on this. It's another thing to say, I'm willing to help work on it. And a year and a half ago, Linda came and said, the United Church of Christ is putting together a curriculum on white privilege. I'd like to explore that and see what the possibilities are for the council. And so she did that, and that began a year and a half journey. I don't think either of us had any idea what the journey would involve. I certainly had no idea how difficult this would be. We have tackled some pretty tough issues in the past and continue to tackle some pretty tough issues. I will share with you, nothing compares with this issue. Racism is so deeply embedded in our society and in us as individuals, that dealing with this with openness and integrity requires everything we have within us. Linda has not only led that effort, but put in an amazing amount of time to help make this effort work. As a result of this, we have just finished 3 merciful conversations on race that happened during the month of October, and we'll now get back and kind of see what we did right, what we need to change, and then start offering these again in the winter and in the spring. These are important, difficult conversations, but they're happening because one person stepped forward and said, I am willing to work on this. And that's the reason that all of that is happening. And I am so grateful for that. And I think this may be one of the most meaningful, if not the most meaningful thing the Council of Churches has ever and may ever work on. Linda, on behalf of the Rhode Island State Council of Churches, it is my honor and great joy to present you with this year's Faith Leader of the Year award. Congratulations.
Wow, this is a bit over the top. Glory to God, and good morning to all of you. I must confess, sorry Don, that I stand here really as a representative of an amazing team of people that has been working on this course, Merciful Conversations on Race. One night, several weeks ago, I was leaving the church that I pastor, and as I drove around the corner from the church, I saw a lynched body hanging from a tree in the front yard of a home that had recently been sold. And upon closer inspection, I recognized that the body wasn't a dummy, it was a Halloween decoration. But because this lynched dummy was attired in all black, had on dark black sunglasses, and had a face that was smoky gray, it could easily have been mistaken for a black man. I wrote a letter to our new neighbors. Welcome to the neighborhood. And in the letter, I did welcome them in a friendly way. But in addition to that, I talked about the racially charged symbolism of their Halloween prom and encouraged them to take it down. The next day, that dummy was down. Praise the Lord. But, you know, it raises so many questions. It raises the question of, in our racially volatile society, how can some people be so insensitive? It also raises the question of, are there certain aspects of racism that are so systemic that they're not even recognized as offensive? And if so, what can we do to raise awareness about that? Thirdly, it raises the question of how can we begin to have honest conversations about race? Not only honest conversations, but meaningful conversations where people are willing to stay at the table long enough to actually hear each other and respond. These are some of the important questions that this Merciful Conversations on Race course is tackling. And as we all know, that in our nation today, with the issues that Elon Cook so eloquently had shared and raised, we are living at a leadership in Washington, D.C., where we need to be having more conversations on race. Not just conversations, but merciful conversations on race. And so it's a joy to me that the Rhode Island State Council of Churches is sponsoring this course, which is based on a curriculum that was developed by the United Church of Christ. And Merciful Conversations on Race, the course itself, not only raises awareness about personal and systemic racism in our society, and an often neglected aspect of systemic racism, and that is white privilege. In addition, this course is engaging people in honest conversations about race and racism and how to address this concept, this reality of white privilege in our society. Over the past year, the Rhode Island State Council of Churches has had a task force, and the task force has been working on this course. We've been tweaking, we've been developing new parts that can be added to the curriculum, and as a result, as Reverend Anderson had mentioned, the course has been piloted in 3 locations. That happened last month. At 3 churches, one in Lincoln, one in Newport, and one in East Greenwich. And at this point in time, good news, we are currently lining up new home sites for the Merciful Conversations on Race course for 2018, beginning in January. So if any of your organizations are interested in serving as a host site for this course, please contact the Rhode Island State Council of Churches. Please also know that this particular course can be adapted to other faith traditions as well as to other groups of individuals. But as I mentioned earlier, I stand here as a representative of a team that's much bigger than one, hallelujah. And this course could never be where it currently is without the hard work of the faith leaders and other individuals who have worked on this task force. And so I'd like to invite the members of the Merciful Conversations on Race Task Force to please stand at this time, if you are here. Task force members is the hard work of the individuals who have committed to facilitating this course. They went through a training to be able to facilitate this course. And if our facilitators are here, would you please stand at this time? We would also like to give a special shout out to Barbara Silvas, who played a key role in developing a facilitator guide for this curriculum. We also want to give a shout out to Kathy Jellison, who has done a phenomenal job of coaching our facilitators. And of course, none of this would be possible without the dedication, without the spirit coming through Reverend Don Anderson and Council President Reverend Chantel Washington. And it's on behalf of this amazing team of faith leaders and others who are committed to answering the call of God to rise up, people of faith, to not be silent, people of faith, but to be an oak of righteousness, to stand for peace and justice and equality in our society. Because if the faith community can't do it, who else can do it? Amen? So thank you once again for the opportunity to represent this amazing team of people. And we hope that you'll join us in sharing merciful conversations on race in communities across our state. Thank you and God bless you.
While you're standing, please remain